What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Weekly Daily Podcast. It's me, Ben Dailey. I'm here joined with one of the regulars of this pod, one of the more regulars, Ethan Everhart.
This is my third time, right?
Third time.
Third time.
You and Ed are competing for... You and Ed, I don't even know. I guess I've had maybe
Ed's
a couple
probably
other guests.
been on more than me, but
Yeah, he's been on more. You're probably second place, but...
I've been in more locations. This is third time, third location.
Third location. And this is Ethan's car.
My car.
So,
Looks pretty nice, doesn't it? I keep it nice and clean.
pretty nice. We are here in Kansas City. We are in, I don't know if we're on the Missouri side.
I think we are.
I think we are now. We
Yeah.
stayed in Kansas last night, but yeah, we are on a little road trip, doing a little tour run, and we are here in a park doing a podcast.
Yep.
About 6 feet to my right, this direction, people are walking right
Two
now.
Two women are walking right past us.
Are they looking at us?
No, one of them's on the phone. I think the other one's her daughter, and she's not paying attention.
Yeah, we're right. We're in a pretty busy park, and it's a very nice park. But yeah, the shade. We wanted to park in the shade because it's very hot, and the shade happens to be maybe 6 feet from the sidewalk. So
And about 18 feet in front of us is a very busy street.
very busy street. It's a very nice neighborhood. This is maybe one of the nicer parks in the city, if I had to guess, based on the surrounding neighborhood and houses.
And how well it's maintained and the lack of trash.
Yeah, I will say the bathroom. I was bragging to Ethan about times I've visited Kansas and how nice the bathrooms are. And you know what? The -1 on this one. They had a bathroom, which is great, but
It was clean, too.
the stall, which TMI, I had to pee. Wink. All right, this is going off the rails from the beginning.
It's a clean podcast.
It's a clean podcast. I don't talk about number twos. But the stall, it didn't have like the locking mechanism. It's such a typical park thing, huh?
Yeah.
Just like you're like, oh yeah, you can use the bathroom, but the door's broken and everybody will see you. So.
I thought the toilet was like overflowing or something.
No, toilets seemed. I didn't use the toilet. Did I? No, I waited to use the urinal. Anyways, we drove up here Friday.
We did barleycorns in Wichita.
Barleycorns in Wichita. Yeah, so we just to break down the trip here, we're doing Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Did not get a show Saturday, but we'll talk about what we did on Saturday. But before we talk about the show, let's recap beginning of the week. Did you do any shows earlier in the week in Denver?
No, I didn't. I was in Breckenridge. So over last weekend, I flew back home to Iowa so I could drive to Illinois for a buddy's wedding. And I went to his wedding, and then I came back, and I flew home to Denver, and my cousin picked me up from the airport because he was taking his kids and his girlfriend to Breckenridge. So I hopped in their car, and we went to my place. I got my stuff, and then I went to Breckenridge for a couple days. And before I got on the plane, he texted me. He's like, "Hey, just so you know, the girls came home from school, and they got a bug, and we've been puking and going number one, out number two, you know.
And going into bathrooms that have actual locks.
Yeah. Quite frequently.
Frequently, yep.
And I in the past 22 years, I've puked. Well, before Tuesday, one time. I've only puked twice in like the past 20 years.
Wow.
And so I hadn't puked in like 6 years, and I'm like, I'll be fine. Yeah, I'll be fine. And then they pick me up, and we go to Breckenridge, and it was very funny because we ordered pizzas that night from this pizza place, and he's like, every time we get pizza, I only get one, and it's never enough. And he ordered 2 pizzas, and the pizzas get delivered, and they're literally like, I'm not kidding,
the biggest
pizzas you've ever seen in your life. So we had like way too much pizza.
That is one thing. That's something that I don't want to say grinds my gears. That sounds like I get mad. It's what's another way to say I'm grinding my gears, but in a less aggressive way? For some reason, my brain wants to say a peekaboo. That is not correct.
That is
obviously,
not.
Isn't there something that starts with a P? Pet peeve.
Yeah, there you go.
This is a peekaboo of mine. a pet peeve. I don't know why peekaboo. A pet peeve of mine is when, you go to get-togethers like that and somebody orders a pizza, and it's like a medium pizza from Domino's for like $7, and there's like 14 people there, and you're like, I mean, look, I get that. It's like if you want to split it, let me know.
Yeah.
We all got to eat here, and I'll put some money down. But to be like, I got it, don't worry about it, and then you're like, and not saying that's obviously not what your cousin did or said.
That's what I was trying to avoid.
We've all been to parties like that where you're like, man, I've never been madder than, I'll say this real quick and let you get back to it, but I was in Costa Rica when I was living in Nicaragua and traveling around the area there. Sorry, I got like eye booger in here. And I went to this hostel. I was visiting Costa Rica with like 3 other people that I knew from Nicaragua. Went to this hostel. There was this guy there. He was like this very outgoing, kind of like weird, but just like very outgoing Argentinian. And he was like, hey, I'm going to make dinner tonight. If you want to pitch in, I'm making dinner for everybody. So I'm like, okay, cool. How much? And he's like, $10 each. And so we each give him $10. And $10
goes a lot farther down there than up here.
Dude, $10 is like a week's worth of groceries.
Yeah.
Like, that might be exaggerating, but not by much. Like, truly, that goes pretty far. So $10, you're like, this is going to be a big meal.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding you. There was like 30 people at the hostel that pitched in and he cooked for. I'm not. He made soup and rice. I cannot state this strongly enough. He made a bowl of rice that would have been for 6 people. So you see people like get it, and then you're scooping and passing down.
Yeah.
So you're scooping like one spoonful.
Because you don't want to be the one that takes all the stuff. Yeah.
Like one spoonful, and then passing it down and still going, the people at the end aren't going to get any.
Yeah.
And then the soup, and you're just like, so no joke, it's like maybe a half of a bowl of soup and rice. When it's like, dude, I thought I was going to have 4 unlimited bowls.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it was very clear this guy took all this money, did not use it all.
Yeah.
And he's doing like this inspirational, like, oh, kumbaya type stuff. And I was like, I'm going to fight this guy. I was very angry. You know, when you're like, because I was very hungry too. And I was on the verge of like, let's go out
get or something. Yeah.
Let's go get dinner. And then it was like, okay, let's pay $10, wait 4 more hours, and then not get any food. And at this point, everything's closed because we're in like a small beach town.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, I'm going to like strangle you.
Yeah, you're like upset and hungry.
Yeah.
Which is just compounding.
Well, upset mostly because I am hungry.
That's fun.
But anyways, back to pizza.
Yeah, we got the pizza, and then we ate the big one because he had like, it was his fault. He just didn't look at the diameter, or he looked at it and he misjudged it. It said 24 inches diameter, and he didn't visualize how big that actually was.
Yeah.
So he got a smaller one, and we basically ate all of the big one, and then he was just using the other one for like breakfast the rest of the week. And the next day we go out. I'd never been to Breckenridge. So we were like, we were like walking around the town, and we went to some parks, and we come back, and then we go out and we go on this little hike, and we go to this little troll, because his girls are 4 years old, and we're just going around the place, and we come back, they go to bed, and I accidentally hit the recorder there. I elbowed into it, but nothing happened.
We're all good.
I go to bed, and then I wake up at like 4, and I just have that feeling of like, you're going to throw up. Because even though I don't puke very often, you know when it's going to happen.
You know.
And I'm like, this isn't happening to me. This ain't happening to me, buddy. And I took some deep breaths, and it kind of subsided, and I kind of dozed off for another few minutes, and then I woke up, and it was like again, and I did it again. I did like 2 or 3 times between 4 and 5 a.m., and finally it was just like,
it's got to
come out. And then I, got up and I puked, and like, just immediately you just start sweating.
Yeah.
And like there wasn't a lot either.
No?
It was just some came out, and then puke out a little more, and then I'm still like kind of dry heaving though, because your body's still instinctually doing it.
Yeah.
And I'm just like caked in sweat. And then I clean my mouth off or whatever.
And then you went downstairs and finished the small pizza?
And then no. I go and I lay down, and like as soon as every time I would like lay down and move, my stomach would lurch, and then it would all like restart.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I'd like lay down and I'd move, and then my body was like, "You need to go to the bathroom right now."
That's the worst with feeling sick. You'll throw up and you're like, "Oh, I'm healed.
Yeah, I feel
I'm
better.
fixed. I feel so good." And then that 30 minutes later it just goes back to that same cycle of like, "Uh-oh, I'm in trouble again."
And that happened basically all morning, and then they finally woke up around 9, and Nick was like, "How are you?" I'm like, "I puked." And he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm so sorry." I'm like, "It's my own fault. I said don't worry about it. It's all good." And then we ended up driving back to Denver because he was taking the girls to the zoo.
Mm-hmm.
And the plan was, hey, we'll take the girls to the zoo, and then after the zoo, we'll bring them to your place. You'll watch them, and then we can go out for a date night in Denver. And so he's telling me his plan. He's like, "Yeah, we'll get to your place around noon, and then we'll go to the zoo, and we'll be back home. We'll be back to your place by 3. And there's a guy looking at us.
Oh, yeah.
Walking right past going, "What?"
He was
are these
aggressive.
crazy
You're going to
people
see
doing?"
him. You're going to see him right
That's
there.
him right there. He's
is he going to go behind the car and look? I
yeah.
thought he was going to watch from the back. That'd
That
be
would've
the
been
funniest
very
thing
funny.
ever.
Well, it's more people than are going to watch this on YouTube.
Yeah,
So.
we got one live viewer, ladies and gentlemen.
But he's telling me this. He's like, "Yeah, we'll be back to your place by 3, and then we'll go out and maybe pick the girls up at 6." And in my head, I'm like, "You don't realize how big that zoo is, do you?"
They were going to which one?
The Denver Zoo.
Oh,
and so they dropped me off my place around 12:30 or so, and then I'm just like, I'm out of it. I feel terrible. I go upstairs. I lay down. I just laid in my bed all day. And like 3 o'clock rolls around. I'm like, I should probably get up and take a shower just in case. He hasn't texted me or anything. So take a shower. Hasn't texted me. I lay down. I wake back up. It's 4:30. He still hasn't texted me. I'm like, I think he's just going to end up going back to Breckenridge.
Yeah.
I think that's what. And then at like 5:45, I finally get a call. He's like, hey, we just left the zoo. And I'm like, it was bigger than you thought it was going to be, wasn't it?
5 hours?
And well, it took him, I live north of the city,
true.
so it took them probably 45 minutes to get there. And they have little girls, so they have to stop. They probably stopped to eat, and they were taking breaks through the whole thing. And so he gets out, and he's like, "Yeah, the GPS is saying it's 55 minutes to get back to your place. So I think we're just gonna head back to Breckenridge, because that's where their condo was." And he's like, "If there's any chance we can come back during the week and do this, it's no big deal." I'm like, "Hey, that's what I figured you were going to do. No skin off my back." And then I just laid around for the rest of the night.
Nice. Well, that's the full recap of one day of Ethan's a week.
Yeah.
That's and that was what day? Beginning of the week, Monday? Tuesday.
Yep.
Did you do any shows though? Shows or mics?
I was supposed to do 2 shows, and they both got canceled.
Oh, that's right. I was on.
Yeah. You were on one of them.
Yeah, so for me, started off the week and finally started going back to some open mics. I kept saying it. I'm trying to work out some new material.
You texted me and asked me if I was going to one.
Yeah, tried to get you to go to some.
And I was in Breckenridge.
On Monday, yeah?
Yeah, on Monday.
Yeah, so Monday I did I did the double. I went to Long Table and Black Shirt Brewing. Got 2 mics in, working out a story. Not many laughs.
Did you
but
murder to the 4 people who were there between the 2 places?
I did not. I got pretty much 0 laughs at Long Table. And then at Black Shirt, it was just comics as well. But got a couple laughs. I mean, it's funny because I told you this. It's a story that I'm working out, and I feel comfortable. Like, when you write something, whether it's a story or a joke, and you're like, this has legs.
Yeah.
Like, you get to a certain point as a comedian where you're like, I know that this has some legs to it. But it's also a story about, like, my first job interview after college. And at an open mic with just comedians, I don't think it has enough elements to really get comedians to care and listen. Whereas some of my other stories are about, like, drinking at a party or, like, clogging a toilet, things that, like, might get a little bit more attention of people being like, oh, let me hear, because, I don't know. It just doesn't have the element of, like, oh.
It's not open mic comedy.
Clogged toilet.
Yeah.
But I did it, and I feel pretty good about it. I got to do it some more. But on Tuesday, I went out with Dailey. We went to this mix mic that I asked you if you wanted to go to.
Yeah.
And did I tell you we just left?
No.
Yeah. So we went. It was in Aurora, It was like 10 minutes from my place, so it wasn't that far.
Yeah,
And it's
I'm like, where's? You told me what it was. I'm like, where's that? You're like in Aurora. It's a mixed mic. You get extended set,
it's a dry dock
something like
brewing, something like that. And it's a mixed mic. And I was like, okay, maybe I'll get a longer set to be able to do this story and just have non-comedians there to get some input. And we get there, and we got there at 6, started at 6. And the guy, introduced myself to the guy, and he's like, hey, yeah, we'll have you go up like 3rd or 4th. And then he goes, yeah, probably around 7:30.
Jesus.
And I'm like, all right, 3rd or 4th, you're starting at 6, or they started maybe 6:10.
Yeah,
couple
everybody
minutes,
gets 20 minutes.
Well, I was
'Cause
like,
it's a music mic. Right?
yeah, I was like, whoa, that's crazy. He did 30 up top.
Oh my God.
Next guy did 30 up top, and then 10 minutes to get the next guy set up. Then he does 30. Now it's 7:20.
Oh my God.
2 people have gone, and he calls the next guy up.
Now,
and so,
are these bands or just like guitar or singer?
It's just 2 people. So like,
okay.
Yeah, I mean it depends, but it was mostly 2s where somebody would be doing acoustic and then maybe the other guy electric.
Yeah.
But yeah, 30. I mean, full sets, dude. I'm like, dude, I could run the full.
You could run your
full
hour.
act.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wasn't trying to. I was like, dude, I'm trying to do 5 minutes. Can I go up? And so it's like 7:20. He calls the next person up, and I'm like, all right, I think we're just gonna leave because if this guy does 30, it's already 7:50.
Yep.
I got here at 6. I was coming here because I'm like, I'll probably get to go up in the first 45 minutes, do a quick set, get out. But the guy comes up. He was very nice, the host, but he comes up and he talks. He's like, I did comedy a couple times. I love comedy. I'm excited to hear you. And he goes, yeah, so I'll have you guys in 1. Like, not the next guy, but...
Yeah. So you're on deck.
And then he goes, no, in 2. So then I'm like, dude, it's going to be 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
Before we go up. So I felt bad because he talked to us and we're like, yeah, we're excited to do it. And then we snuck out and I texted him and I was like, hey, man, just got an Amazon package. I had to head out. Sorry.
Oh, that's funny.
Which I did. But I was like, I live in a dangerous area where they steal stuff.
Yeah.
It was like a $12 jacket.
That's funny.
But, yeah, ultimately left. And I was like, man, I wanted to. It stinks when you go out to do a mic, especially when I'm not going to as many.
Yep.
And you end up leaving because it's like, well, still wasted 2 hours out there. But what can you do? Also, not a huge deal, but some people do this, and it kind of is frustrating when somebody gives you a time estimate.
Infuriating.
And then it's like it's like, look, I get that you're trying to give me a heads up.
Yep.
Don't give me a time estimate unless you're going to be around that.
Yep.
If you go, yeah, you should be up around 7:30, and then it's 7:45, and you're like, you're going to be up in about an hour.
Yeah.
It's like, just go, hey, man, I'll get you up, 5th or 6th.
Yeah.
In the lineup, and then I'll find out that everybody's doing 30, and I'll leave
earlier.
Yeah.
So I'm not there for 2.5 hours.
Yeah, but that was kind of frustrating. Then Wednesday, what did I do? Didn't do any mics on Wednesday. Went to old Blady Boy, Delina's big old furry cat. He got his teeth removed Wednesday.
All of them?
Not all of them. He has some rotten teeth in there.
Okay.
He got, I don't know, like 5 taken out.
Oh my.
And so she had picked him up, and we were just, oh no.
Did it shut off?
It's okay.
Okay.
Wow. I'm really check. It's good.
You should put it there.
Yeah, it's fine. Just don't touch it. Sorry. Delina's cat, Blade, got his teeth out. So we were just gonna hang out at her place, since he was getting picked up and kind of drugged out, and hung out with him. And we watched. Did we watch a movie?
A precious kitty.
What did we watch? I can't even remember. My brain is like, with all the travel that I've done, like coming. I mean, I was just here a couple weeks ago.
Yep. I'm gonna be here next.
City.
Literally on Thursday night. I'm gonna be back.
I know.
Here.
Isn't that hilarious? Some people are like, "Wow, dude, how do you're on the road out there?" And you're like, "Oh, wow, I've been in Kansas City 3 times in the last 3 months. That's crazy." But yeah, Wednesday just hung out. Thursday we were supposed to do a show.
Draft.
Did not happen.
Yep.
And I think I did a mic Thursday? Mutiny.
Mutiny. Yeah, we both. I
Yeah.
ended up hosting that mic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so. That was 3 days ago. I'm
Yeah.
like, what did we do Thursday?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw you,
That's
and you
wild.
hosted the mic. Yeah, hosted the
Yeah.
mic. There were more people there than usual. If you're not familiar with Mutiny, it's a
Yeah.
little.
Jose wasn't there. Like, I got there first, and then Lachey showed up, and we were chatting, and it was like 5:58. And she's like, "Is this happening?" I'm like, "Well, Jose posted about it, and he's usually a few minutes late or whatever." So I just sent him a message. I'm like, "Hey, do you want me to set up the list?" Because I had my notebook, and then you showed up, and then he responded. He's like, "Dude, I just woke up. I took a nap, and then my alarm never went off because my phone died. Is there anybody even there?" And it was like the one time there were like
A lot of people.
8 or 9 comics there. I'm like,
Which is hilarious because a lot of lists in Denver are like 30, 40, 50
Yeah.
comics. And Mutiny is, 3 or 4 is like,
Yeah.
whoa, people showed up. So 8 or 9 was like,
Yeah.
oh my goodness, dude,
like,
this is a resurgence.
I'm like, yeah, actually there are. He's like, of course there are. Can you run the mic? I'll pay you. And so there's a basement there apparently, and I went down there and I got the mic, and we started it.
Did
and,
you get paid?
Yeah.
You went up and asked?
Yeah.
That's funny. I've hosted a couple times, and that's what you do is after you do it, you go up to the cash register
Yep.
and the person there, the barista or whoever the employee is there, and they pay you. But it's a mic in the back of a comic book store, kind of a communist-esque, would you say?
Well, they have the communist flag there.
Yeah, a very co-op, what would you call? A very what I'm trying to say is they don't make any money from the mic at all,
Yeah.
but they still pay, so I appreciate that very much.
Yeah.
But I've hosted it in the past where nobody shows up, nobody's buying a drink, and I go, I'm not even asking for the money. I've done it where I've asked for the money before and then just given half of it back to them as a tip because I'm like, I don't. And getting paid, I think it is important to get paid, but also
I
it's
get
very
paid.
easy.
I get paid once a month. I'm like, I need this $40.
I think this 40 is helping us get to Kansas.
I have to put gas in my car.
Yeah. But that was Thursday, and then Friday we left.
While I was there, I bought a little peanut butter bar because whenever I go there, I try to buy at least one thing to support.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought a peanut butter bar, and it was so hot. There's no air conditioning there. It was so hot. They had Liquid Death, but the Liquid Death was like $4 for one can. And then they had this glass bottle of Squirt, the pop, the soda, Squirt. And I haven't had that in 20 years. I'm like, you know what? It's hot. I'll drink one of these, and it'll remind me of when I was 10 years old. And you can attest to this. My stomach hurt for a day and a half after drinking it.
Yeah. I mean, I drink 6 Celsius a day, getting affected by one squirt was pretty surprising.
Well, there's no corn syrup in Celsius.
Is that what gets you?
I think that's what it is. I can't drink pop anymore.
Aren't you having other stuff with corn syrup? You eat pretty terribly.
Well, what else has corn syrup in it?
Everything.
Like to the extent of soda?
Well, not to that extent, but if you're like getting taken out for a day and a half with corn syrup, you'd think maybe a little bit would still. Anyways, that was Thursday. Friday, we left.
Ben's just mad because he eats like a bird.
Yeah, and my stomach still hurts a lot.
Yeah, I don't want to hear it. Yeah,
I felt pretty good. Honestly, we had barbecue a little bit ago, which we can talk about in a second. But
oh my god,
I didn't stuff myself. I had a little oatmeal before we went, so I think that made me like not stuff myself to where.
Look how skinny this guy's legs are. Holy crap, those are like toothpicks.
Yeah.
Those look like your arms.
Yeah, he's got some nice legs.
Small.
But we left Denver about 7:30 on Friday, drove out to Wichita, which was 7 hours?
Yeah, it wasn't a bad drive.
Wasn't bad. I worked from the car. Not ideal. First time working from the car. I tethered, is that what you call it? I tethered whatever my phone, the internet from my phone to my computer. And obviously, like in the middle of Kansas, there's not a lot of bars.
Yeah, reception is shoddy.
Yeah, so it worked out, but I was making some calls where people were like, I can't hear you very well. And I was like, oh gosh, we are out here. But it worked out. We got to Wichita with a couple hours to spare. And then the end of the day was a eventful interesting. I had which Ethan and I have talked about this, so it's just recreating the story. But you know what?
Yeah.
You guys, it's a funny, interesting story.
Listen to my podcast. We talked about it last night from the hotel.
Yeah, listen to Hey, I Have Ideas Too.
Comes
That's
out
Ethan's.
tomorrow if you're listening to this the day this drops.
Yes. And you can just hear basically the same topics again on Ethan's pod.
With a little more colorful language.
With a little more,
Mine's not a clean podcast.
A few more curses, but
basically, we were at a coffee shop in Wichita, and there were like 10 minutes left before Ben was done for the day, and he got called by this crazy old guy who was like, "You're rude and stupid." And we were in a coffee shop, so Ben couldn't raise his voice, so he was just being like, "All right, sir, if you're going to be rude, I'm going to hang up on you."
It was and he didn't even call me.
Oh yeah, you called him. Yeah.
Which makes it seem like, oh, maybe that's why he was annoyed. No, he filled out a form, gave his email and phone number because he was interested in our products. So I called him, and it's the very first thing, our company, it's like legally we have to let people know that the phone conversations are being recorded. Are these people just looking at us?
No, they're older, so I don't think they can tell what's going on around them.
Okay, well, people just stopped right in front of the car. It's funny I get it. We do have microphones. People are probably going to peek, but sometimes people will just like stop and stare, and it's like, hey,
it's like, look, we're needy and need content. All right.
It's funny because we're like, we want attention, but stop giving us attention.
Yeah, I want attention on Instagram.
Go on YouTube later. Give it attention. But anyways, call this guy up. And when he picks up, first thing that every call does, and it's infuriating, but it is what it is, there's just a message that plays that says, this call is being recorded. This is the company calling, and it's a recorded line. It's just for legal purposes. They say they have to do it, whatever.
And literally every company on the face of the earth does it.
Yeah. A lot of times that person will say it live. They'll be like, hey, it's so-and-so. I'm calling on a recorded line, which I think would be better because there's like 6 seconds of this recording that people just go, oh, this is spam. Anyways, that happens. People may think it's spam, but also when somebody submits a form for me to contact them and 3 minutes later I call them, it's not that much of a surprise. I'm sure they're like, oh, this is the company
didn't you get an email that said, Ben's going to be calling you?
Yeah, Ben will be calling you shortly. And so I call him. It plays that recording message, and then he just go and I go, hey, is this so-and-so speaking? And he goes, you're calling me on a recorded line? I don't what is that? How would you feel if, or he said that, and I go, yeah, just, touching base to see what you're looking for. And he goes, yeah, but would you feel comfortable if I was recording this? And it was very hostile from the beginning. It was just very over the top. And I was like, yeah, if you want to record it, that's totally fine. And he goes, okay, hold on. And 10 seconds later, he's like, all right, I'm recording this now. Which already it's
well, it's already being recorded, so.
Yeah, okay. I mean, genuinely, it's sure, record it. I don't care. I'm not calling to, I'm calling to talk to you about our products, not to threaten you with something that is going to be ooh, I got the recording. I'm going to need that. So I then go, yeah, just curious to learn a little bit more about what you're looking for. And then he goes, well, I'm looking for, and I won't say what I sell, but he's like, well, I'm looking for the product that your company sells. That's a stupid question. Am I wrong? Do you sell anything else? Because that's a stupid question. And I was like, he goes, I can't remember exactly what he said, but I've listened to it quite a few times.
Yeah. We talked about it last night on my pod, and then he actually pulled up the recording, and we listened to it a couple times.
Yeah. And it was literally me barely talking, and this guy just losing his mind.
Every you're like, I'd love to talk about the product, and he was, he goes, well, I filled out what I needed it for, and you didn't look at it? That's pretty unprofessional and pretty rude. What's your name?
Yeah.
What's your name, and do you work for the company? Do you work for the company? And you're like, yeah. And he's like, yeah, but are you contractor? Do you work for the company? And you're like, I work for the company.
Yeah. He was like, what's your name? I'm like, my name is Ben Dailey. B-E. I was giving him all the info. I'm like, let my superiors know, because he's like, I'm going to be calling your supervisor. You've been
You
putting
don't
me
know
through
who I am.
a horse and pony show, and this is what did he say? A dog?
You treat me like a junkyard dog.
You're treating me like a junkyard dog when I'm like literally not even speaking.
You've said 6 words.
Like, what happened in the I said what I said in the beginning, and then for us, he's just like being a crazy person. And I said, he goes, why would I buy your products instead of over the? And I said, sir, you can buy the competitor. Like, I was like, if you're gonna keep being rude, then I don't know what to tell you. And he was like, I'm being rude. You're being rude. I cannot believe how rude you're being. I want to talk to your supervisor, and I'm recording this, and I will be sending this to you. And I was like, that's absolutely fine. And he goes, why would I pay so many thousands of dollars for your product? And I go, well, he goes, what
depends
makes
on the situation.
Yeah, he goes, what makes your product better than your competitors? And I said, well, it depends on your situation, which I'm trying to learn about.
And then he's like, my situation? I already gave you my situation. You tell me what you're talking about, and without going through all this. It's like,
and
he was literally doing it.
Every time I was trying to get information, which, by the way, I could have hung up 20 seconds into this call, and it would have been fine with my company reviewing it. But I didn't, and then so I'm kind of like just trying to be like humor the guy, like, okay, well, can you tell me a little bit more? And he's like, I already sent you this stuff and this and that. He sent me absolutely nothing. I got his email and phone number. That's why I reached out to learn more. And he's just like going crazy. I mean, he's just an unhinged person. And so I told him multiple times, like, if you're gonna keep being rude, I'm gonna hang up. And he's like, you're not gonna hang up on me. And then just rambles. And then eventually, like 5 minutes into the call, I'm like, all right, well, you have a nice weekend, sir. I'm hanging up. And I hung up. And I'm curious to go back to work on Monday. I emailed everybody in the company immediately, be like, hey, this happened. Review the tape. I don't care. I feel fine with it. But if you want to tell me I messed up, that's fine. After listening to it again, I feel totally, I barely said anything.
Yeah, you said probably a total of 18 words.
Yeah.
And most of them were
covered up by the guy talking over me.
He was talking over you. Yeah, that was funny.
But it
was funny watching you listen back to it and like kind of get fired up about it all over again.
It was getting me fired up.
Yeah.
Just people like that. I'm at the point in my life, especially since starting comedy and like just I pay my bills. I'm a grown adult. I save money. I know what I'm doing.
And you're not trying to ruin anybody else's day.
I'm not trying to ruin anybody else's day. And at this point in my life, I took the brunt of bullying or whatever for a long time in my life. At this point, it's not that I'm like lashing out against people, but I'm not going to, if someone's going to just treat me terribly, I'll just leave the situation. Or B, I'll tell them, hey, don't you ever talk to me like that again. Now, in a work setting,
it's different.
It's a little different.
Yeah.
But also, it's still, I was like,
yeah,
I'm not going to, if you're just going to talk crazy, I will hang up. That's fine. And my company will back me up.
And that's what they tell you to do, right?
Yeah. It's like if someone's talking crazy, I was genuinely, even after he was talking crazy, be like, well, can you tell me more so I can answer your questions of why we would be better than the competitor? I need to understand what product would work in your situation to then be able to compare apples to apples. And he obviously wasn't giving me any of that information. So I was just like, well, I can't even, I just can't help you. You're unhinged and not giving me anything to even answer your unhinged questions. But that was a funny way that was at the very end of the day, fired me up a little bit, and then we went straight to the show in Wichita, which I didn't think much of it after. Like, I didn't go on stage like...
No, you didn't bring it up or anything.
It was like, all right, dude, it's the weekend. I don't care.
Yeah, that was also the other great part is it was like after you hung up, the coffee, the barista came up to us and she's like, we're closing in 5 minutes. It was literally the last thing of the day.
Yeah, it was
over. The day was over on a Friday.
Yeah, just like, all right, hung up, and I'm like, it's the weekend now. This guy is crazy. But we went from there to Barleycorns, which is like a kind of like a rock
rock
club bar.
I mean, it says rock hall or whatever right on the front.
Yeah. I mean, it's like they have a marquee out front. It's probably
didn't have our names on it. I looked. They didn't put our names there.
That's not
was
surprising.
rude.
We were on the chalkboard
Yeah.
underneath, but they had it's basically like a nice stage, curtain behind, looks real nice. A bar runs the whole length of the bar on the side pretty much, and then there's probably like 40-ish seats down the stretch, and then in the very back there's like a pool table that's covered up, and that's where people, including ourselves, set up our recording equipment.
Yeah. And then there was a booth right at the front where the window was, which is where we sat.
Yeah. And it was a very fun show. I did it like a couple years ago. This first time coming back since then. Ethan and I co-headlined. So Ronnie, the guy who put us up, very nice guy, very funny.
Sweet fellow.
Very sweet fellow. He hosted the show. It's his show. And then another local comic, Kevin, did a spot. And then Ethan and I both did about 25.
Yeah.
I kept it. I went maybe like 23, and you went like 28.
Yeah, I think so.
But very good. It was a great crowd. Just pretty much ran the jokes.
23? Is that what your recording said?
Yeah.
Didn't feel like it. You did very well.
Felt like less?
Yeah.
Well, I should have kept going. I told you, especially with you going
Yeah.
last, it's like, if I were to like run the light and go closer to 30, and then you ended with like 20,
Yeah.
or 20, because there was a rock show afterwards, so
Yeah.
we there was like a hard out time. So I try to be, as much as I can be goofy and silly and
try to be
annoying,
tight.
I try to be conscious of like, hey, I'm not trying to like take all the thunder and then be like, all right, dude, you can do 15 to a rowdy crowd now that
Yep.
they're all hammered. But it was a very fun show. Just did the jokes.
I almost had to. Anyway.
Yeah. Almost had to. After my set, Ethan, so we co-headlined, but I went first. Ethan finished out headlined. And before he went up, Ronnie did like a sponsor announcement for alcohol and passed around shots. So for like
free
the first
shots.
free shots
to everybody.
So for the first couple minutes, everybody in the room was just taking shots and chatting. And I was like, oh, no, because it was a great crowd.
Yep.
Like, especially for a rock club where there's a bar. Like, a lot of those rooms can get pretty rowdy and have people kind of checking out. Although it was a ticketed show, too, so people were there for it. But they were very well behaved. And other than a couple minutes there of them having the shot, they got back on track, and Ethan finished very strong. He had a very good set. They were the crowd was there for the show and wanted to laugh, and that feels good. Feels like a very simple formula, but it does not happen like that a lot of times.
Yeah, a lot of things have to line up, and most of the times they don't line up.
Yeah. You're like, all right, a lot of people bought tickets. They're sitting
here,
and watching.
And they're here.
They're all drinking some drinks.
I'm doing my jokes.
And they are not laughing at all. I don't know. What is this thing right here? We got a nice...
it's a nice little reflection.
Nice little reflection there.
It's the windshield of the car behind us.
Yeah, it's okay. You guys are just going to get...
yeah.
I'm not going to hold my hand there. That's obnoxious.
You
guys are just going to get, some shiny footage. That's what it is.
It's the Lord.
It's the Lord coming in.
Shining his light on your podcast, Ben.
Shining. Yeah, there he is. Look at that.
Yep.
But that was Friday. We did that show, and then afterwards we went to Harry's, a little bar with food. Which was pretty chaotic, pretty busy.
It was very busy, very tight, and very loud.
Yeah, it was very loud. We got a couple things to eat there, and then we went back and stayed at Ronnie's. He was nice enough to let us stay at his place, which was nice. And then we left the next morning. Saturday, so yesterday, we didn't get a show on Saturday. So we got Friday in Wichita. We're doing a show tonight, which is Sunday, which will be 3 days ago from when this comes out. But we are doing Knuckleheads tonight. But yesterday, we didn't have a show. Weren't able to set one up, which was fine. We ended up going
I really tried.
Yeah, we tried. It was kind of a last-minute thing, and we tried briefly, but then we could have set something up. I was, on the road for a couple weeks at that point and driving every day, and it was just kind of a chaotic. It was tough to get stuff coordinated at that point, so we just kind of let it be.
It is what it is.
But we ended up, let them know, what did we do yesterday? Per
We
Ethan's request.
demand.
That's
it
a
was
better
a demand,
word for it.
Actually.
Not a request.
Well, you had a good time. So
yeah, it was interesting. I was down for it.
We so Wichita is in southern Kansas, and we drove an hour and a half back up to I-70 to hit Abilene, which is it was probably a cow town in the 1800s, a little railroad town, but it's the birthplace of one Dwight David Eisenhower.
Dwight Eisenhower.
And he has his presidential museum. And we went, and Ben he grabbed a picture of me in the museum. That was me in my natural habitat. That's what I love that stuff.
Yeah.
It's my stuff.
Ethan's a big history fan. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge... Well, let me rephrase. Growing up, did not care at all about history. I didn't...
Which
I was
so
too,
funny, considering all of the Civil War battlefields near your hometown.
I feel similar about... So I grew up in Virginia around a bunch of Civil War battlefields.
And Revolutionary War.
Went to a bunch of the sites for field trips, vacations, different things like that. But similar to country music, at first I was very ADD as a kid, so I just didn't want to do any like this history learning stuff. I just didn't care. I was too ADD to care about it. But also, I feel like stuff that I was kind of put around, like country music, was very popular. A lot of people were listening to that, and I just didn't like. I was like, ugh. And I don't know what it is, but my best theory now that I'm older is like maybe it was like too much around it to where I was like, I don't like that.
That's kind of how I feel about partying.
Yeah.
Is because I'm like the opposite of my parents aren't like anti like learning or anything like that. But it wasn't. I didn't grow up in a house where my dad was like, and then in 1907, Teddy Roosevelt did that. It was like, no, they were like, we like to go drink on the weekends, and my mom smoked cigarettes, and I'm like, I don't do any of that, and I like to read.
Yeah. I didn't discover and appreciate learning and reading until becoming an adult. Truly. Like, I now very much like learning. I mean, it's like most people, there's certain subjects that I could care less about, and I hyper-focus and want to learn things that resonate with me. But that those topics have broadened the older I've gotten. So something like Eisenhower, which I generally wouldn't be seeking out a book or really caring too much about, thinking about going to a museum and being like, wow, this was one of our presidents, and this is his life story and where he started and where he traveled to and his whole journey to becoming the president. And then, just like, oh, wow, he was president during these, like, pretty crazy times.
And it is, we were kind of talking about this earlier, where it was like, especially going to, like, older presidents, like museums, and you read about their lives and you're like, oh no, these were like legitimately like admirable people.
Oh yeah.
Like,
you look at them and you go, that's what it used to be. It used to be just the person that you're like, everybody in town and the state, and then ultimately if they become president, like the country respects them for being like a good, hardworking, respectable leader. And boy, have we change gears a little bit.
Yeah, it's I think that's part of a product of like TV and the internet too. Like, because I'm sure if all this stuff was around then, you could dig up skeletons and stuff like that. But,
for sure.
But when I went to Jimmy Carter's in Atlanta last year, 2 years ago, and like he's like a legit nuclear scientist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was like a legit nuclear scientist. I don't know I can't remember if it was when he was president or not, but like, I don't know and I think it might have been 3 Mile Island. I could have some of these details wrong. But do you know what 3 Mile Island is?
Yeah.
Like, so like
Pennsylvania?
Pennsylvania, right near the border.
Yeah.
And
saw a documentary on that. Very interesting.
There was like,
almost had Chernobyl in America.
But like they were like, it might not have been exactly 3 Mile Island, but it was something like this where they're like, no, it's very, very safe to come here. And like he went down in to prove that it was safe. And like before he was president, there was like a nuclear breakdown somewhere, and he personally like went down in and like solved the problem.
Oh wow!
And like he divested himself from his like peanut farm to run for like his modest peanut farm. He's like, I don't own that company anymore because I shouldn't because I'm president. It's like, this is like, there were like honorable people who used to do this job, and now everybody's like, you eat children.
Yeah. No, times have changed quite a bit. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's also interesting too because there still are people like that nowadays.
Yep.
But we do not elect them. Like Ben
No.
Carson. Ben Carson was like a brain surgeon.
Yep.
But people just saw him talk and they're like,
And they're like,
boring.
You're crazy, dude.
Boring. And it's just like,
Yep.
yeah. I mean, he's just one example. There's a million, I'm sure,
Didn't he
that are.
die?
Ben Carson? I don't think so.
I'm thinking Herman Cain.
Herman Cain.
Herman
Yeah,
Cain
yeah.
died.
999.
Yeah.
He was what? Grandfather's Pizza?
Godfathers?
Godfathers.
Yeah.
Grandfathers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Grandpappies?
Yeah, that was yeah. It's a wild thing. It's a wild thing. I think if I were to track, because it used to be, I think also a part of it is like Americans have always been, now this is just turning into a U.S. history podcast, but like Americans have always been like justifiably skeptical of the government because of how we got founded.
Mm-hmm.
But there was like this golden era of where most people generally trusted the U.S. government, generally speaking, of course. Right up until I think the real punches were the Kennedy assassination, Vietnam, Watergate, back to back to back, and everybody's like, "You killed the president. We started this fake war, and everybody's corrupt. I don't trust any of you guys."
Yeah,
and I don't think we've ever recovered from it.
Yeah, it's really been going downhill for a long time. Especially with, I mean, also too, I'm sure, like you said, skeletons in the closet with people. I'm sure skeletons in the closet with government is as well.
Oh yeah.
But now in the age of information, like we just know too much of like, and also it can take decades for stuff to come out.
Yeah, that's why.
So like looking back at these things happening in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and these what do you call them? These programs or these what do you call them? Where you like, are they called programs?
Like government programs?
They're not programs. They're like projects or like these CIA. I'm blanking on the word. What am I thinking? Like
files?
No, like the government in the U.S. they sold a bunch of guns to Mexico, and ultimately a lot of those guns ended up killing American citizens. It was called like the Fast and the Furious. I can't remember.
Oh yeah.
What do you call that?
So these are like government programs.
Are they programs?
Yeah.
Are there projects? Isn't there another word?
Because like we did that in the 80s. Like Reagan did that. He's like, oh, after the Mujahideen's fighting the Soviet Union, here's a bunch of guns. The CIA give them a bunch of guns, and then the Mujahideen turn into Al Qaeda.
Yeah, maybe it is project. I can't.
Yeah.
It was just bothering me the word for it. I think there is like Project Fast and Furious.
Yeah,
might be project. Anyways, that was Saturday. We went to the museum, which included him from a young boy, his family, going into playing football, going into where'd he go? West Point.
West Point.
Then he went to World War I after it had just, he went over there, but it had just
the war ended by the time he got there. Yeah.
Then what? He came back and did he go back to school or what did he do?
Well, he was still at
went
West
back
Point.
abroad
Well, he's
again,
getting like
yeah?
stationed. He was like stationed in San Antonio. He's stationed in California. He did this. He was a part of like the government in the 1920s. Did this. They need to send a bunch of equipment to the West Coast from Washington D.C. before the highway system was put in place, which he eventually puts in place as president.
Yeah.
But he's a part of this large caravan that goes across the country, and then he gets stationed in Paris, and then he gets stationed in the Philippines for a few years, and then he comes back. He lives in Washington for some years.
And he works for years to develop like a European battle
he
front
writes
strategy.
he
wrote a book,
about the battlefields in Europe. So like you're reading all this and you're like, oh, this is why he's chosen.
Yeah.
He knew how to do everything.
Yeah. Well, then in World War II, he was, I don't know, he went there after the fact. I think I don't know if he was very heavily involved in the strategy and
planning
and planning, and then he
got sent over to do a review of
the concentration camps.
No. He got sent over initially to do a review of the U.S. Leadership in Britain right at the beginning of the war, and he comes back and says to General Marshall, he's like, these leaders suck. You got to do something. And Marshall's like, you can be in charge of the Africa campaign.
That's right.
And then he's in charge of that, and then he starts as a 1-star general. Within 4 years, he's a 5-star general.
Yeah.
And he eventually gets put in charge of all Allied commanders in Europe. He tours the concentration camps, and then immediately
And he was like, "This is
he was
bad.
like, "This is no good, no good." And
This is not good."
he forces the German populations around him to come and tour them, and he's like, "This is what your government does." He writes letters back to Roosevelt and Truman. He's like, "Hey, you guys need to send like senators and congressmen over here so they can come and see this, so
Yeah.
nobody thinks this is BS."
And then so he does that, and then after the war, was he involved in the Korean War somehow?
No, he became a
Assistant.
he was
Some
he
sort
became
of
he became assistant secretary or secretary of war or something like that. General of the armies or something.
yeah.
George Marshall got moved to Secretary of State, and like he kind of took over Marshall's job, and then he retired and became the president of Columbia University. He wrote Crusade in Europe, which is a book about what happened in Europe while he was in charge.
Yeah.
And then Truman, during the 48 election, was like, "Hey, everybody loves you. Hey, I'll be your vice president. If you want to run for president as a Democrat, you go right ahead." Because he had never voted.
Yeah.
And nobody knew what his politics were.
Yeah. And he didn't want to do it in 48.
And he's like, "No, I'm good. I want to be out of the limelight." And then in 52, which, by the way, at this point, I think it's the 23rd Amendment, might be the 22nd. The president can only run for 2 terms. That happens after FDR dies. They make that constitutional
Right.
amendment. But Truman, because he was already president, could have run for a 3rd term
as a
'cause he
vice
would've-
president.
as president because he was
Oh.
grandfathered in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And so he chooses not to run again because the Korean War started, and there's this Republican candidate who has all the delegates to win the nomination, and then they like convince Eisenhower to show up, and
Yeah.
he's like, "I'll run for president," and all the delegates are like, "Screw you, Taft, we're going Eisenhower," and then
Yeah.
he just wins, like hand over
And he
fist.
wins. Yeah. So he was president, what, 53 to 61?
Yep.
And then that was pretty much the whole thing. And then it talks about his involvement with the Cold War
Yep.
era. And then we so that was interesting. That was just the museum part. But we also did a tour of his
Childhood home.
they called it boyhood home. I don't know if I've ever heard of boyhood.
You haven't?
I don't know. Have you hear that a lot? That's a weird term.
Yeah, I've heard it.
It's usually childhood.
Yeah, it's one or the other.
Okay.
Well, also he only had 5-6 brothers, so there were no girls. So it is really a boyhood.
I guess that's true.
Yeah.
So saw his house. If you want to hear about the tour, we talked about that on Ethan's pod. But we
also visited his grave. He's buried there.
visited his grave as well. Nobody was in there.
It was very quiet.
It was a very quiet. It was like a little mini church with a little water spigot, flowing water in there.
It is weird. We were talking about this there. It's like it's weird to go and see how like important he was to like world history, and then you just go in this room and you're like, his body's right there.
Yeah, you're like, his bones.
He's like 6 feet under right there.
Right there, right beside his wife and his child.
Holy cow! This is wild stuff.
Yeah, interesting. I was telling Ethan, this is another thing. It wasn't until getting older that like you go to, maybe visit a graveyard of a grandparent or a great grandparent, someone who's passed, and as a child, there's like you just don't get it.
Yeah.
You're just too young. And I haven't been to a graveyard in a while, but I feel like the older you get, the more you're just like, you're not invincible. You get older, you understand like death is inevitable. And being right by the bones, you're like, this is whether you want to call it a spiritual or whatever thing, you're like, oh, wow, that's crazy. This person who led our country for 8 years, his bones right here.
This guy's like an important world history figure.
Yeah, like one of...
Also, it really makes you like, especially that one in particular, because it's like, this dude literally came from a tiny town in the middle of Kansas, and then...
Yeah, and then made it.
You're like, this is the best country in the world.
Yeah, you can make it, dude. You can make it. Abilene.
Makes you appreciate the old U.S. of A.
He made it. So we did that on Saturday, and then that took a while. I mean, honestly,
It took longer than I thought it was going to.
I'll be honest with you. Most museums, I've said it before, 15, 20 minutes, and I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
We were there for 3 hours.
Yeah. Well, like we also,
I burn out like the last 30 minutes, but I was pretty involved for the first
the tour
2.5.
The tour of the house was like that.
16 minutes long,
and it like interrupted us in the museum, so we had to like bounce back and forth.
Yeah, but we did that, and then we drove 2 hours or whatever to Kansas City and had a whole fiasco with the hotel situation. Hotels are so expensive now; it's obnoxious. Again, we talked about it on Ethan's pod, so I won't repeat the entire thing. But the hotel, it used to be like, okay, over or under 100. If it's 100 or over, you're like, this is a nice spot.
Yep.
If it's under 100, it could still be nice, but when you get to like $50, you're like, okay,
You're
that's
like, all right, it's gonna open into the parking lot.
no joke. I mean, I'm sure there were Super 8s and stuff that we could have gotten for around $100 maybe. But like the cheapest option at a decent hotel, it was like $170
After all the taxes and
after
fees.
all the taxes and stuff.
Do you know?
And in one kid, we had to share a king. We couldn't. It
Yep.
was like $200 for 2 queens, so we had to opt for sharing a bed for $100.
Which wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it's fine. A
There
king
was
is
literally
massive.
like 4 feet between us.
A king is fine. Sharing a queen, I've done that plenty, and that you know you're both pencils.
Yeah, yeah. You're
You're
butt
scared to
cheeks are
spread out.
kissing. Yeah. Do you know? I think somebody is bringing a suit against Live Nation.
Good.
And Ticketmaster for all the fees.
Yeah, good.
And if that goes through, things are gonna look different. Because like, you know, I mean, Delina's a huge Taylor Swift. She's a Swiftie. Those tickets here in the U.S. are like
$1,000.
$4,000. You know how much it costs to go and see her in Australia?
$27.
$100.
$100. Yeah.
$100 to go and see her in Australia.
Yeah.
And it's like that's gonna if that goes the way it should go, things might start looking a little different with that stuff.
We talked about that on your pod too, about how I hate how they do that. Hotels do that where you like, I was clicking on the hotel and then it would be like, oh, that room's not available, and then so I would go back, and because I guess there was traffic on that site from me, it was like bumping the prices up, and I'm like, dude, I hate that. Same with
Uber
flights
and Uber.
with Uber, where it's like, dude, just what's the cost? Make it a fixed cost. This is what it is. And with the tickets, when it's like, oh, everybody's looking at the webpage, so we're going to inflate the prices by a ton, but maybe if you check back in 2 days, if there's still tickets, maybe it'll be lower, maybe not. Like, just why am I gambling with my regular purchases for everyday life?
What happened to you in the car was like egregious, because at least like with the ticket, the flight, if you go to buy the ticket, you're getting the ticket.
Yeah.
At that whatever price it is at that time.
Yeah.
Whereas like they were like, nah, let's see if we can get them for 15 more.
Yeah. I kept going through the entire process going, yes, book this. Here's my credit card information. Here's all the details. Complete booking. And it's like, it literally verbatim, it said, darn it, exclamation. Darn it. that is no longer available. And you're like, yeah, that's not, darn it.
Well, neither am I. I'm taking my business elsewhere, buddy.
Yeah. And then I would look elsewhere, and that would also be gone. I was like, I was also, it had been a long day. We're out in the sun, the museum, and it's just one of those where your brain is like,
where you're like,
losing steam.
I just want to go to the hotel.
Yeah, it's like, I don't want to deal with any of this anymore. I just want to just like, get to a hotel, take a shower. Ugh, it was a whole thing.
I think I was telling you, I'm like, my conspiracy is that the hotel companies are starting shell corporations that are buying up all houses, and they like own all the houses on Airbnb, because they do the same thing where it's like, oh, $89. You're like, heck yeah, I'm gonna get this Airbnb for $89, and you click on it, you put all your information in. They're like, all right, that'll be $217 for one night, and you're like, what? And they're like, $150 cleaning fee, dishes fee, convenience fee. Convenience fee is the biggest.
By the way, $150 cleaning fee, and then in the checkout instructions, they're like, make sure you wash all the dishes, throw all the stuff in the washer dryer, get all the shit. You're like, what is the cleaning fee?
Yeah.
You are telling me
I should give you the fee.
Yeah. You're like, if you don't do these things, you're getting charged extra. It's like, well, that's the cleaning. What are you talking about?
What's the extra fee? The extra fee is $30. It's like,
literally,
so if I
it
don't
just
do
makes me want to hit people up and go, hey, I'm not going to make your place dirty.
Yeah.
I will do the dish, and I'll make it to where it's the same as when I came.
Yeah.
Can you cut the fee, and I'll just give you the money? But of course you can't do that. That would be too
Yeah.
cool. So it's
like
just,
when I'm at an Airbnb, I'll even if they don't tell me to, I'll pull up the sheets, I'll ball everything and put them on the bed for them because
Yeah.
it's like that's just polite.
yeah, that's like what you do
Yeah,
when you
because I get you're trying to make money. I don't want you to not make money,
yeah.
and I want you to get this turned over as fast as possible. But it's like I'm not paying an extra night and a half's worth of staying because you did because I don't.
Yeah, it's frustrating.
I
but
hate price gouging drives me up the wall.
so instead we stayed at a Hilton, which sounds very nice. And it was
It
fine.
was all right.
But I think I used to think Hilton and some of these places like, oh, this is super nice. It's like
I think
it's fine.
I think it used to be because now there are so many different Hiltons.
yeah,
Like when we were younger, it was like they had a Hampton Inn, they had the Hilton, and then maybe like whatever. But now they've got like Home 2 and
whatever the breakdown
airport.
of different.
There's a million of them now.
But we went there. We got there. We went to the gym. Made use of that. It's good to, man, being on the road. It's important. I've said it before, but it's like I've got to get in the gym or exercise when you're in the car for a long time, and then just being on the road. It's a lot of stress. The getting into some sort of routine is important. So we did that. Then we just hung out. We did Ethan's pod in the hotel. We got up. We left. We're hanging out in a park. We had barbecue.
God, burn ends. Burn ends
morning?
are the best thing.
We went to
Of all time.
Q39,
Which we've both been to before.
which we've both been to before.
Which
I'll be honest, not incredible.
we tried to go to Slaps because we woke up checkouts
Slaps
at
or
11.
slabs?
Slab, whatever it was, I don't know.
Yeah, something
But
like that.
We woke up. Neither one of us worked out this morning, unless you did while I was sleeping.
I did not.
But we got up and it's like, well, checkouts at 11, and they tried to. We didn't get a continental breakfast for whatever reason, but not though I don't think either one of us would have used it anyway. But
I think we could have.
Probably.
You know, I say that. I went down this morning. So yeah, just to preface it, they were like, you have to pay extra for the breakfast. You know, $170 for a room does not include breakfast. You're like, I mean,
like I'll
the
go buy
$60
cereals. I'll go buy
Econo
cereal.
Lodge has a breakfast. What are you talking about? Anyways, I go downstairs to get coffee, and there's no coffee around, and I'm like, I asked the lady at the desk, I go, hey, do you have complimentary coffee? Which is not a phrase I don't think I've ever used in my life.
Yep.
And she goes, yeah, it's back there. So I go back to where the breakfast is, and there's a lady at that bar. There's like a bar before you get to the breakfast, and I think she was probably the person checking breakfast stuff. But I just walked with confidence by her, and she didn't say anything. And then I'm just in the breakfast area. That's where the coffee is, which is where it usually is. But if it's you have to pay to get breakfast, I would have imagined like, hey, I'm paying $170 a night. I assume the coffee is an extra.
Yeah.
And I mean, it wasn't, but I went and got it, and I could have just gotten all the other breakfast stuff because it was right there.
Yeah.
It's the coffee and then the Fruit Loops and the bread and all this stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, am I technically not supposed to be getting? I mean, I didn't care. I was like, I'm getting the coffee. But that's why I didn't go back. I was like, we can just go to a gas station. I'll get another one because I was like, I don't know. I feel like they're gonna check a ticket. Yeah.
Yeah. But we didn't do that, and it was like checkouts at 11, so we leave right at 11, and we're like, because with the show, the show is not until 6.
Yeah.
And well, we're gonna get there at like 5:30 or whatever. But it's like we have all this time. It's Father's Day. We got to call our dads and stuff. But it's hot. It's so hot outside.
Yeah, it's
that
90 and humid.
You can't. Yeah, and it's the Midwest, so it's humid. The river's right over there, and it's surrounded by corn for 600 miles, so it's super humid. And we're like, well, we try to find this. We both found out we've been to Q39. We're like, maybe we'll go there, but we both want to go somewhere we hadn't been. So like, we'll go to Slabs or whatever it's called. It's like 3 minutes away from the hotel, and it is 11:04.
Yeah,
it is 11:04.
Place opens at 11.
Place opens at 11, and we pull up, and it's literally you can see in the back on the patio, full patio, and then a line out around the corner, like almost into the street, and we're like,
into the like 4-lane highway.
Yeah,
it's just like,
I'm like, well, that's apparently the destination spot.
Yeah, which is a shame because it's like, oh, that's probably one of the spots that you're like, we tried the place. Because when I went to Joe's, which is another KC barbecue, I went there a couple years ago. That's known as like a big spot. We waited we were in line for like 45 minutes.
No.
But it's like I'm not trying to wait that long.
I will not. I refuse. And we ended up going to Q39 and walked right in. I basically sat in the same spot I sat in last time, and we got pretty good barbecue.
It was good. It was good. It was fine. It wasn't anything special. We both got the brisket and burnt ends. You got extra
pulled
pork. I got extra rib, like 2 ribs. And I mean, the ribs were good. The burnt ends, not that good. They weren't that burnt. It was mostly just the meat and just a little side of like burnt. But it was pretty much just like the brisket. It wasn't.
I love burnt ends.
I love burnt ends too, but it didn't have the burnt portion as much as I thought. Because usually it's like smaller pieces.
Yeah.
These were like big square chunks where one side is burnt, but you're like, dude, it's like an inch by inch by inch cube. So most of it is just the chewy meat.
Mm-hmm.
It was fine. It wasn't anything special. Is that what I would give it 6 out of 10.
I don't have it. I guess I don't have anything to compare it to in KC because it's the only KC barbecue
well, not
place.
in KC, just in general.
I don't think I've had burnt ends anywhere else.
That's crazy.
I know. I've had ribs. I
had burnt ends a couple weeks ago in St. Louis, and this was at just like a not as nice a place as Q39 is, and they were probably better. I mean, they weren't incredible, but the funny part is at this place it was just fat. The just fat pieces that like melt in your mouth. That's what they were, and I was like, "Ooh, this is pretty good." I've had better, but it was pretty good. Today it was fine. Q39. If you want to sponsor the podcast, 10 out of 10.
If not,
6 out of 10. Okay, I won't change it.
Well, you can sponsor mine.
For what? You're giving it a 10 out of 10?
I'll give it a 10 out of
10. 10 out of 10. That's lame.
Well, it's the only place I've been to in KC, so
it was fine. Again, just to preface or just to say, I'm not a picky person. It was fine. I was kind of full. I had oatmeal right before, so I was also not as like.
You still
ravenous.
have your brisket.
Still have the brisket.
Yeah.
So I'll eat that later. But that was good. We had that. We're hanging out at the park here. We're gonna go. I'm gonna try to convince Ethan to go to Starbucks or something so I can maybe write a little bit and use the bathroom. Most importantly,
I'm gonna have to stop
I'd like
somewhere
to
and
do
get
that.
something to drink.
Celsius.
Probably. I have to drive late, so
yeah, we're driving back to Denver tonight. Got a show at 6 at Knuckleheads, and then probably gonna try to leave. Should we try to leave? Like, I guess it's gonna be late no matter what, but probably try to leave.
Yeah. Well,
not hang out for too long.
Yeah, you're going first. I think I'm going third.
Yeah, but doing that, and then it's like an 8-hour drive back home. We're gonna get back like 3 a.m. kind of best case scenario probably. But we'll be fine. We'll split up the drive.
Might be 2 because we get the hour change.
Yeah, but I think I already factored that in.
Okay.
Because if we leave at 7, and it takes 8 hours,
that would be
then 3. That would be 2.
Yeah.
But are we going to leave at 7? Or are we going to leave right when you get off stage?
Probably not right when I get off
Exactly.
stage.
And if stopping for gas and stuff. So we'll have to see. But that's we'll wind this pod down a little bit. Extra content for you guys this week. Hopefully the car pod was fun. But next week I've got I may try to hit some mics.
There's a Kansas City Royals World Series champion flag over there from 2015.
Yeah, it looks older than
look
that.
how old it is. Yep.
The Royals. I didn't even know they won.
Yep, they won in 2015.
But yeah, next week going to be hitting up the mics to try to work out some new material here. I've got Don't Tell on Friday and Saturday, whatever days those are. Yeah, it is nice. And then I've got a busy upcoming schedule. Check out my link tree via the bio link in my Instagram if you're interested in checking out a show coming up. You got anything coming up?
Well, I guess the band we played at Vultures. We play tonight when this drops. We play at Vultures in Colorado Springs.
Solar Flare Sunset.
We're playing in Vultures, and then I have to go to Tennessee for a wedding. And then I think the next stand-up show I have on the books is Highlands Ranch.
There you go.
Yeah,
Max Taps, Highland Ranch, every
last Saturday of the month.
Saturday. Check out Ethan's socials at the Ethan Everhart. Check out his podcast, Hey, I Have Ideas Too. He does have a dirty little mouth, and if you like clean podcast, do not listen to that. But
I have lots of books, so it's okay. It's
If you like-
couched in intellectualism.
yeah, he pretends to be smart with books behind him, but
That's-
most of it is him just saying a bunch of naughty words and
Talking
long
about
rants.
football.
It's kind of honestly like what I do. I ramble, but he just rambles in a dirtier way,
Yeah.
and maybe a little bit more aggressive.
Yeah,
way.
well, but not when it's not football season, though. I think I'm pretty tame. Football season, the first few weeks of the football season, I usually want to kill myself.
Yeah, I mean, we did before this podcast have a little political debate, and it got a little. Yeah, it was friendly heated. I did tell Ethan he was dumb multiple times.
You did. I actually think we generally, I think we agree on the exact same stuff. We just disagree on how to get there.
I think we do too, and I think a lot of people do, and that's why a lot
And
of
that's
times
fine.
it's frustrating to
It's fine.
to debate.
I graduated with a higher GPA than Ben.
That's
and
not
that's
true.
Fine.
I had a 3.3.
I had 3.42.
All right, I had 2.7. As soon as I said 3.3, I was like, that's not good enough. I was like, that's a big lie that I'm saying, but it's still not good enough.
That's fair. I love how you just backtracked immediately.
I was like, yeah,
Instead
you
of
definitely
going, that
did.
doesn't count.
Yeah,
Barely.
yeah,
You're
you go.
like, no, it
I
was
had
below 3.
One of the lower graduating GPAs that you can get.
That's funny.
Yeah, my claim to fame was I made Dean's List one semester my senior year,
Nice.
which Dean's List is 3.2, and I got exactly a 3.2.
Nice.
So the best semester I
What'd you
had,
graduate? What was your degree in?
marketing.
Oh.
Here's a weird thing. It's a bachelor's of business administration, which most of the time places go, do you have a bachelor's of arts or a bachelor's of science? And it's like, neither. Bachelor's of business administration. I don't know why that's not, like, when you fill out,
Yeah.
it's been a while since I've done this, but when you fill out job applications and they're like, which one? You're
Yeah.
like, neither, but you just have to pick one.
Yeah. It's
You're
probably closer to art, right?
I guess. I don't know. But that always confused me.
Interesting.
It's like this
Where'd
business.
you go? Where'd you go?
Radford University,
Is that in Virginia?
Southwest Virginia, right next to Blacksburg, Virginia Tech.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I went to Iowa. Prestigious.
Probably pretty similar college experiences, if I had to guess. Wait, how many?
I didn't live on campus.
Oh, that's true. Very different there. But the campus is Iowa City?
Yeah.
How
Have
many
you been
people?
to Iowa City?
Don't think so.
You didn't do joystick?
Never did joystick. I've been out to Dubuque
Okay.
and no,
Cedar Rapids?
Davenport,
Oh, you did Renwick, right?
Renwick.
Okay.
I don't know if we crossed through Iowa City on the way, but I
You
don't
probably
think we
drove
did.
or you probably drove past it, but you didn't go
Yeah.
through it. Yeah.
But is that a big population there? Radford's like, I mean, 10,000 kids go to school there, and the population's
Iowa
probably like
City.
10,500.
50,000 students go to
Oh, okay, that's
university. Yeah,
way bigger.
it's the
Ohio State.
It's the Iowa University of Iowa.
Yeah.
And I think probably during the school year, there's probably 150, 200,000 people in Iowa City.
I was gonna. It's a one-way interest, and that person was
Oh.
like, which is weird. It's like, yeah,
It's big. It's wide enough.
it's wide enough.
Yeah.
But anyways, check out Ethan's socials, his band, Solar Flare Sunset.
Yeah, we're pretty good if you like rock music and cool guitar riffs and solos and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, they got some new stuff, new music out there. Got a collection of old albums. Yeah, plenty of songs to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I have ideas too. At Ethan Everhart. Follow me on Instagram at the Ben Dailey. I'm getting very close to 100,000 followers. I only need 99,000
You're
more.
such a hack. You're such a hack.
That's my new Instagram pitch, which I guarantee you I've never heard. Well, I've probably heard something similar.
Yeah.
I can't remember me hearing that.
I'm
going,
calling
I'm
you
going to
a-
use that.
I'm calling you a hack for doing it on your podcast.
Well, you got to plug it somewhere, and I plugged it at the show we did at
and
Barleycorns.
And you plugged it at the hour and 13-minute mark in the podcast.
Yeah, I plugged it at a point that nobody's been listening for the last 30 minutes.
Well,
Maybe-
and everybody heard you only had a 2.7 in college, and they're like, I will never listen to this
Yeah,
again.
they go, wow, but we cannot.
I'm going to listen to Ethan
any-
complain about professional football
Yeah.
on his podcast.
He got a
now.
3.3. We can listen to
3.42.
Chicago Bear talk.
3.42.
3.42.
Graduated with honors. No big deal. Wrote a thesis.
I.
What about you want to read my thesis? It's
Not
pretty
really.
good.
Is
It's
it
about
anything
comedy.
like
It's about comedy.
cog squishy?
No, it's a historical research.
I Dude, I don't have any papers or anything that
Yeah.
I ever wrote that I was like, this is
It's pretty good.
something
I could
to
turn.
save.
I kept it because we can talk about this off camera unless you want to keep it in. But it was one of those things where, because when you're writing, because my degree was in history, so I like learned how to sift through all the archives and actually do historical writing, and that's what my thesis was. So I did. Mine was about stand-up comedy and like censorship, like obscenity. So I talked about through the lens of Lenny Bruce and George Carlin. So it was about like the 60s and 70s.
Yeah.
And when you start writing that stuff, it's like so daunting, and you're like, because they're like, it needs to be between 40 and 45 pages, and it needs to be cited, and you have to have a bibliography and all this, and you're like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to write 40 pages, and like your professor is like, trust me when I say you're going to be cutting stuff.
Yeah.
You're going to be cutting stuff. Don't fret. You're going to be cutting stuff.
Oh.
Don't worry.
What was
It's
that?
not going to be bad. And by the end, I was like, there was so much stuff I had to cut that it was like it felt like it was undermining my argument, where I'm like, could I turn this into a book?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll write a book. So if you see this book come out in the next 15 years, it was my college thesis.
Its origin started in college. I said, what is that? Not to your thing. This car in front of us is
like
trying to
backing up.
parallel park, and first off,
They're halfway in the.
I mean, it's not even considered parallel parking because what they
I don't
did
even think they're
is
parked.
But also, did you see the Mercedes thing? It's a Mercedes, and the little emblem on the back, on the trunk, it like flipped open. So there was like a whole
did?
like a gas tank. Yeah.
Oh,
It
that's
flipped
interesting.
open, and that's when I was like, "What is that?"
Is there a person in there, and you can just poke through and look out?
Yeah, just it's like a little speakeasy. All right, well, we'll end it there. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for being on, Ethan. He's got nice teeth.
I paid for him in college.
In college, paid for him. His thesis was so good they gave him free teeth.
Yep. Now I had to pay for it out of pocket.
Okay, not good enough for free teeth, but we'll end it there. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you again next week.
Bye.